Good evening, Fresno Audubon. And this evening, I'm going to be talking about a safari that my wife and I did in September of 2022. And I will get started with that now. Let's see if I can get this link to work. All right. So we went to Zambia in September. And Zambia, for those of you who may not be familiar with the country, is in southeastern Africa, next to Angola. It's the pink country that you see on the screen in the bottom part. And let's see, I've got something on my screen here to make it disappear. But okay, so we're in Zambia. It's a small country next to Angola and Tanzania. It used to be a British colony, and you might know its name as being Northern Rhodesia before it became independent in 1964. So there are over 700 bird species in Zambia, and that's a good reason to go there. And there are many other reasons, and people ask me, why did I decide to go to Zambia? Well, first of all, it's less crowded than many of the other big destinations like Kenya and Tanzania. And it's easy to get to from San Francisco. You can fly from San Francisco nonstop to Qatar, Doha, and with a layover there, and then you fly one more flight to Lusaka, the capital of Zambia, and you are there. So it's really easy to get to. You don't have to join up with a tour group. If you get with the right safari lodges, they'll pick you up at the airport, take you to the lodge, and if you're transferring to another lodge or another safari camp, they'll take you there and get you back to the airport. So it's very easy to work out. So this is the country right here, and you can see on the screen some dark green areas. Those are the national parks. The largest park is more in the center of the screen, and that is Kafue National Park. And it is about, let me see, how many square miles? 8,600 square miles. So it's very, very big. It's the fourth largest national park in Africa. We went to South Luangwa National Park, which is over on the right-hand side of your screen. That is around 3,500 square miles, which makes it about the size of Yellowstone National Park. And in comparison, Yosemite National Park is around 1,100 square miles. So that is Zambia itself. They do have many parks there, but a lot of them are basically game preserves to establish, maintain the pristine habitat, and they haven't been developed with safari camps. So South Luangwa National Park, Kafue National Park, and Lower Zambezi are the places that most people go. And there's the entrance to the park. There's nothing particularly fancy about it. And this is the scene that you see. South Luangwa National Park is bisected by the Luangwa River. And in January and February, in the heavy rains, it fills it to the banks, and quite often will flood over the banks. And that's very good for a healthy ecosystem there. By the time late summer comes around, the water has receded a lot. And so this allows you to have closer access to all the animals that are around, which is another reason to go to Zambia, is the close proximity that you can have with the wildlife. There's a variety of accommodations that you can have, from bush camp tents. You can arrange with some companies to stay, let's say, at 2 or 3 different bush camps. You stay in one tent, and then you're there for a few days, and they will take you to another tented camp. And that's for those people who are really like to camp and are adventurous. For the rest of us who like a little bit more comfortable accommodations. We stayed at a safari lodge, and this is what we had and the view that we had from the deck of our room. The typical day starts out at 6 in the morning. Well, you get up around 5:30, have a cup of coffee, and meet your guide at 6. You board your safari truck. You see, this is the typical safari truck here. You can see there are 3 rows of seats, and the lodges that we stayed at have a policy not to put more than 4 travelers in any given Jeep. That makes things much more comfortable and much more pleasant environment. And that's another reason for going to Zambia and some of these places here. Otherwise, you'll be stacked into benches with 9 or 10 or 12 people, and that's not a whole lot of fun. So you start at 6 in the morning and you go out until 10 in the morning. You have a brief stop along the way and have coffee and some snack, and then come back at 10 o'clock in the morning for breakfast. You lounge around until the afternoon, and then at 4 o'clock, you take off again for an afternoon and an evening game drive. The Zambia is also known for walking safaris, and it's a quite elegant way to be able to have close contact with the land, the vegetation, and the animals. You need to do it in company with a guide and with a park ranger, and it's safe. This gentleman here decided to go on his own walking safari. You can self-drive into the park. He parked along the side of the road and wanted to go about 2,000 feet to the edge of the river to take a picture. Our guide was quite concerned for him because he might have been eaten by a crocodile on the other edge there, or there could have been a lion or a leopard who came out of nowhere. But fortunately for him, he made it back to his car. But that's a walking safari. In the afternoon, when you go at 4 o'clock, you go from 4 until 8 p.m. and you stop midway around sundown, and you have a traditional drink called a sundowner. And then you continue at nighttime looking for the animals of the night. One of the things that really, really impressed me about South Luangwa National Park was that it is a very intact ecosystem, and we were able to see how all the parts of an ecosystem work together for the health and maintenance of that ecosystem. So here's an example of what I call shared resources. You never know what animals are going to be in proximity to each other, but the water and the land next to it have to be shared because water is life. Here's an example of some birds. On the right-hand side, we have 2 Hadada ibis. Those are the birds with the green wings. And on the left, there is a sacred ibis. And down below is a crocodile. I'm going to see if I can. I don't know if everybody sees the bar that's at the bottom that blocks the view of the crocodile. All right, so another example of shared resources. It was quite stunning to be looking at some birds and then suddenly have a zebra or 2 come walking by right in through the flock of birds, an elephant or a warthog or something. They all share the water, the mud flats, and the grasslands that are around the river. Here is an elephant. Very important to the ecosystem. Got a sacred ibis on the left, and underneath the elephant is an African jacana bird. These elephants with their tusks may stir up the water, pick up the vegetation. They'll create boreholes that allows the other foragers to be able to find whatever animals, aquatic animals, are living there. So all these animals work in conjunction for each other. In this scene here, we got a couple of giraffes, and the green plant on the left-hand side of your screen is a good example of shared resources. This bush, had it not been browsed, would have a completely different shape. So your small animals come and they nibble on the leaves at the bottom. Halfway up, taller animals come and browse on that vegetation all the way and up to the top. And then you have these giraffes that are reaching up high to the banana or the sausage tree looking for those pods of seeds. These are two thornocraft giraffes, and they are unique compared to other giraffes for two reasons. If you look at the spots on the hide, you will notice that the spots are at the up on high on the neck are larger than the spots coming down to the hindquarters and down the legs. The spots get smaller the lower they go. And in the background, you see a giraffe that is much darker than the other. That's an old man. As the giraffe gets older, they get darker. Then there's what I call recycled resources. Here we have a zebra kill, and there's a lion on the right-hand side, and you've got the vultures coming in to eat whatever is left over from the innards of this zebra. And that's very important for the ecosystem, of course, too. Hyenas will come by later on in the evening and eat the bones. This is a hooded vulture. It's quite beautiful. It's one of the smaller vultures, and it's not a very aggressive bird. So it makes sure that it gets to a kill site early before the other vultures show up. Now, there's also symbiotic resources, and here is an example of a kudu, an antelope, a large kudu. They're about 5 feet, I think 5 feet high at the shoulder, so add a couple more feet. They're pretty large. And sitting on the back is a red-billed oxpecker. And these oxpeckers will spend the whole day on the back of one of their hosts. They eat the ticks, the fleas, the flies, what other little critters, insects are burrowing into the hide of the antelope. This red-billed oxpecker is using what is called a scissoring technique to be able to take its two mandibles together and burrow into the fur and pull the insects out. Several oxpeckers on top of the giraffe, and the red-billed oxpeckers on a zebra. Now, as I mentioned, these birds will spend the whole day. They eat, they sleep, they even poop off the sides of the host animal. And if the animal goes to drink, maybe if it's on the muzzle of the host, or if it's on one of their legs, they'll just hang on and take a drink too at the same time. Here we have a yellow-billed oxpecker up on the top of the giraffe. And this was really surprising to see a bird on top of a hippo. I never would have imagined that there's something to eat, to forage on, but apparently there is, and this oxpecker is having a good time. One of the most beautiful birds that you will see in Zambia is the southern carmine bee eater. They come to Zambia from a northern territory around August. In August and September, they move to Zambia and Malawi for their breeding season. And they stay there until December, and they leave and they go a little bit to the south, where they'll spend another 3 months, and then they will go to their northern territory in April and spend another 3 or 4 months there, and then come back down to their breeding grounds in Zambia. So here's what they look like. And yes, they eat bees, amongst other flying insects. They come in very large flocks. This day, I counted about 200 birds flying in the air all around the banks of the river. Close up. And their purpose in being here is to build their nests in the banks of the river. And I have a brief video here to show you what this sounds like. I had to take that video while I was still inside the safari truck. You're not allowed to get out of your safari truck unless you're at one of the rest areas. Otherwise, you risk becoming part of the recycled resources. So here we have on this perch a little bee eater on the left and a white-fronted bee eater on the right. The little bee eater is about 6.5 inches long, and the white-fronted bee eater is around 9 inches. And they all catch the insects that are on the wing. They just sit on a perch and they wait for one of these bees or butterflies or moths or something to fly by, and then they take off after that bird, after that prey. They've got a learned behavior that allows them to eat bees. If they were to eat a bee with a stinger in it, they would be poisoned. And they've developed an adaptation to be able to grab the bee and flip it around in its bill. And then they press that bee up against the perch and force the stinger out of the abdomen, and then they are able to eat that bee. So here's an example of how the bird is just taken off from its perch, going to grab this butterfly. And here is the example of what it looks like trying to consume this bee. That branch isn't moving. That's my camera. I'm holding a 400mm lens. Couldn't use a tripod because we're in the confines of the Jeep. So all right. I was absolutely stunned by this gray-crowned crane. The beauty is very incredible. It's a very tall bird, upright. It's about 9 feet high, and it has a wingspan of 6.5 feet. It's the national bird of Uganda. And it is starting to become endangered because of habitat loss, unfortunately. Here's a bird you might think you recognize, a gray heron. Looks very similar to our great blue herons that we have around here. Here's a black-headed heron. And they eat all kinds of things, such as this snake that this black-headed heron had picked off out of the water. I discovered in the 8 days that we were in Zambia, there are snakes all over the place, and a lot of birds feast on those snakes. The great white pelicans, I was surprised to see them there, and it made me think of our white pelicans that we have here around the San Joaquin River. But they're completely different. Pelicans are a northern North American white pelican, and they are all white except with black tips on the wings. These great white pelicans are endemic to sub-Saharan Africa, also Europe and Eurasia. The yellow-billed stork is about 41 inches high, and it has about a 65-inch wingspan. It eats frogs and fish, and its foraging technique is by tactile means. So it pushes its beak into the mud and into the water, and that's how it finds its prey. The saddle-billed stork is one of the tallest of our storks. It stands measured as about 5 feet long and has a wingspan of about 8 feet. The bill is around 13 inches long, and it gets its name, saddle-billed, from that yellow patch of skin at the base of the bill near its eyes. You'll see it's kind of curved like sitting in a saddle. The African open-bill stork stands around 37 inches, and it's very unique with how its upper and lower mandibles work to be able to get the meat out of a mollusk, a snail shell. That upper mandible will hold the shell in place, and the lower mandible will reach in and scoop the meat out. And it's called open bill because if it were to close its two mandibles together, you would see an opening between the two surfaces. Here we have another sacred ibis, and then on the left is a hammerkop. The hammerkop, the name derives from the shape of its head and its neck, like a hammer. And the name hammerkop is Afrikaans, meaning hammerhead. It's quite an interesting bird because of its nest that it makes. It's about the size of a crow. And believe it or not, it makes this nest about 6 feet wide and about 6 feet deep. It's mud lined or bird poop lined inside. And it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks to make. Now, other birds like to nest on top of it, like a couple of hawks or the Egyptian geese. And when that happens, the hammerkops, they abandon that nest and they go off and they make another one. That's an awful lot of work. So here we have a ground hornbill. This is the largest of the hornbills. It's about the size of a wild turkey, and it is a ground foraging bird. It weighs 14 pounds. So here we have 3 of those along with the sacred ibis. And if you take a look at those eyes, they are peering yellow eyes. It's quite fantastic to watch them. The crowned hornbill is a bit smaller. It's around 20 inches long, and it eats fruit, caterpillars, grasshoppers, and the nest contents of other birds. The red-billed hornbill is the smallest of the hornbills. It's about 16 inches long, and it eats insects. It sniffs out at insects, and it has a voracious appetite, in particular for termites. The water thick-knee is an unusual bird with its very large eye and its thick knee. It's normally a nighttime forager, but it was out in daylight when I managed to get this photograph. One of the things I like about the names, that African names for birds, is they give them some very interesting sounding names. So they call this bird the flat battery bird. It's a great metaphor for its call. And if you think of a battery losing its power or a tire losing its air, combine those together and you get the sound of its call that goes sort of like wah, 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 wah. So that's your water thick-knee bird. Then there are several lapwings that you'll find here. This is a white-headed lapwing. I was curious as to what the word lapwing means. And so I looked up in the internet and found the typical answer is it's called a lapwing because it flaps slowly. That wasn't particularly convincing to me, so I looked some more, and I found out that the Greeks called the lapwing birds, the name for them was luring by deceit. And if you think of the plovers, the lapwings are a species of plovers, the broken wing habit that they have to be able to lure predators away, and they flap their wings as if it is broken. So there's where the idea of deceit comes from. And a group of lapwings together, a flock of lapwings, is called a deceit of lapwings. Here's a blacksmith lapwing and an African pied wagtail. Here's a finch, a blue waxbill. Sandpiper. When I saw this sandpiper, I thought of the sandpipers that we see around here on our coast, but they are not related. Ours are the Western sandpipers. But this sandpiper, the common sandpiper, is in Africa and Eurasia. And of all things, it is a sister species to the spotted sandpiper. We have these spotted sandpipers on the San Joaquin River. I took this picture there on one of the rocks. So they are sister species, and while they do not share common territories, at times they do come together through migration, and they will interbreed. So that's why they call interspecies, hybrid. Here we have a green sandpiper. I don't know why they call it green. It's a very dark brown color. The gray lory or the gray turaco is called a gray go-away bird, and it gets its name from its call, which sounds like you are saying, go away, go away, go away. Emerald spotted dove has very beautiful tips of the wings in sunlight. They are a beautiful emerald color. The African jacana, another beautiful bird, it forages on the water, and it has very, very large toes, which allows it to be able to walk on floating vegetation. And from that, it gets the name of a lily trotter, and also the Jesus bird, because it walks on water. This white-browed cuckoo is a member of the cuckoo species, and it is interesting in the fact because of a role reversal in bringing up young. It's the male that does the incubation of the eggs. The Egyptian goose is quite stunning, and you'll find them in sub-Saharan Africa. You'll find them in Europe. They are becoming invasive in Europe. We even have a few here in the United States that have been brought over and let go. Another beautiful bird, the lilac-breasted roller. This bird is a member of the roller family, and they get their name roller from its flight behavior during courtship. It will roll from side to side, as well as do very steep dives. And it has, I'm told, 8 colors. I sometimes think I can count more than that, but it is the national bird of Kenya. Because of the 8 colors, there are multiple tribes in Kenya, and they chose this bird to represent that conglomeration of all those tribes living together in harmony. Helmeted guinea fowl. For those of you who attended my presentation on wild turkeys, you remember that I talked about the guinea fowl that had been brought to Europe through trade from Africa. And when the Spaniards brought our wild turkeys back to Spain from Central America, people thought that our wild turkeys were just another type of fowl like the helmeted guinea fowl. The red-necked spurfowl is a type of pheasant, and its cousin, the Swainson spurfowl, is very similar, but you can tell the two apart because the red-necked spurfowl has a red beak and red legs, and the Swainson spurfowl does not. The pied kingfisher, I thought, was very unusual. It's a small kingfisher. It's about 11 inches. I guess that makes it about the size of our belted kingfisher. But look at the size of that enormous beak. It seems like it's over, you make that bird fall over from the weight of that beak. It hunts from the air and it kites. And of course, it is a fish eater. The brown-hooded kingfisher, in spite of its name, is a terrible fisher. And it rarely is successful in catching a fish. And so it spends its time eating insects, locusts, grasshoppers, frogs, and snakes. Village weavers. There's several species of birds that have a community nesting behavior. So here are some village weaver nests in these trees. They are colonial. You can have sometimes maybe 200 nests in a tree. It depends on the tree. And in a single territory, there may be up to 1,000 nests in the territory. They are polygynous, and so there may be 5 to 7 females on a territory, and they may frequently change mates. The southern masked weaver looks very much like a male village weaver, and I'm not quite sure which one this is. I tried finding some photographs on the internet, but all the photographs that I found made the two look exactly the same. The red-billed calia is another weaver bird, and they come together in very large flocks. I read that there could be up to 6,000 nests in a single tree and millions in a single territory. They like to eat grain, cereals, and because of that, they cause a lot of crop damage. Here they are in flight. The white-browed sparrow weaver is a beautiful looking bird. And this is its nest. Red-billed firefinch, green-winged Petilia, Lillian's lovebird is unique in a couple of ways. It is the smallest parrot in Africa, and it's called a lovebird because of its behavior. The male and female will sit together on a perch and spend a lot of time during the day feeding each other. And those of you who look at our birds' names earlier, I talked about the Swainson spurfowl. We know about Nuttall's woodpeckers. All these birds are named after men, with the exception of Lillian's lovebird. And Lillian Sclater's husband first described this small parrot in the late 1890s, and he gave the name after his wife, Lillian's lovebird. There are only about 10,000 of these left in the world. You can find them in Zambia and Malawi, but it's very unique to be able to see them. The African hoopoe is a member of the hornbill family, and it's quite a dressy look. Now, here we are out on a nighttime safari, and what we have in the tree is a owl. The giant eagle owl, also known as Varro's eagle owl. I took this photograph during the daytime. That's why we could get the detail. The owl is the largest owl in Africa. It measures head to tail about 26 inches, and it has a 5-foot wingspan. The female weighs 7 pounds, so it's not lightweight. And something about it that makes it very unique are its pink eyelids. It is nocturnal, and it's considered to be an apex predator because it feeds off of monkeys, little piglets from warthogs, hares, herons, cranes, toads, fish. It hunts from a perch. And I put together a video for you here. The sound you hear is the engine of the Jeep. It will go silent in a minute. The guides do not shine the lights directly on the owl. The main beam is in a different direction, but it does illuminate enough. All right. So from going from a very large owl, the largest owl in Africa, we come to one of the smaller owls. This is the African barred owl. It is diurnal, and it is about 8.5 inches long. It eats arthropods, small mammals, birds, and reptiles. Gall's fishing owl is a rarely seen bird, so it was really great to be able to see this. It's about 24 inches long and it has a wingspan of around 5 feet. It's a rare owl, rarely seen, and it is the largest of the fishing owls. Here I have a brown snake eagle. It's around 30 inches tall, with a 6-foot wingspan, and it is a snake eagle. It's the largest of the snake eagles. So obviously it eats snakes, and it likes venomous snakes, chickens, lizards, rodents, and it strikes from a perch. The African crowned eagle is a very unique bird. It's the, the 5th largest eagle, and it's around 39 inches long, and it has just under a 6-foot wingspan. It's the strongest of the eagles, and if you look at its legs, they are thick and muscular, and in flight, it can come down and break the neck of its prey. It feeds on monkeys and baboons and small antelope. And for that reason, it is called the leopard of the sky. Here's a fish eagle. This is a juvenile, and it may remind us of our American bald eagle. African harrier hawk is a bird with about a 5-foot wingspan, and it forages in nest cavities in trees. And I've got several nice photos showing this behavior. It is double jointed, and you'll see how it takes advantage of that double jointedness in its positioning of its legs and its feet as it looks into the nest cavities of the trees. Beautiful wingspan. And I have a video showing this. We were able to watch this bird for around 15 or 20 minutes. It definitely thinks there's something inside this tree trunk, but we never saw it catch anything. One of the nice things about Zambia is that they do not want to have large numbers of safari trucks gathered at one location. And so once a sixth truck arrives at a site, the very first truck to have been there needs to take off and leave room for the other people, so you don't have hundreds of trucks together disturbing the habitat. Tracks. In the morning when we take off, our guide always looks to the roadway to see what tracks he can find. These are lion tracks, and he will look around those lion tracks to see if that lion is following some other animal, something that might be of prey. The animals like to walk on the roads. The ground is softer. Otherwise, walking through all the brush, you might get stickers in your feet. And this lion paw gives you an idea of how tender that might feel. So what do lions, we probably know that lions hunt at nighttime. So what do they do during the daytime? This is early morning and the lion is sleeping, and they sleep. And they sleep just about everywhere, and they sleep, and they sleep. This is a juvenile male lion. I know it's a male because it has a mane, and I know it's juvenile because of its nose. You'll see it's pink and black. Juveniles have pink noses, and as they get older, the black overtakes it. So this guy's got polka dots. Here's a nighttime view. All right. So we left our safari camp at 6 in the morning, and at 6:20, we came upon this zebra kill site. The female lion in the right-hand side had killed this zebra. So our understanding that this zebra had a broken leg, so it was not going to survive for a long time. What I find fascinating in this photo is what the lion ate. It ate the eyes, it ate the heart and lungs, and went for some of the other organs in the intestines. And here it is at 6 a.m. in the morning, resting. It's hot. It's over 90 degrees in late September at this time. We left the site and we came back later that afternoon, 4:20. There's the zebra intact. There's the female lion. She's guarded it all day. She's not been disturbed by anybody else. And we returned the next morning, 6:15 a.m. And here's what we see. The remains of that zebra. This is a juvenile male lion having its meal. We spent probably a good half hour in this male, and this is what that looks like. There are hooded vultures, and white-backed vultures in the background here. We're in very close proximity to this lion, less than 50 feet, probably maybe around 40, maybe about 40 feet.
Yeah, sometimes they kill it. You get to go too close and the Japanese is in the way.
And yes, if you have your speakers on, you can hear the bones crunching. I'm inside the safari Jeep, obviously taking this photograph. Almost every photo that I've shown you this evening has been from within the safari Jeep. Well, after a while, this lion seemed to be, a little perturbed with our presence. And went and did something that we found to be quite interesting, as you'll see in this video. He decides that he wants to dine in peace, and so he hauls this carcass away and takes it behind a barrier to prevent us from driving closer to it. And that is our lion. So it had eaten this zebra. It was a Crauchet's zebra. And one of the things that distinguishes this zebra from other zebras is that the stripes go all the way around underneath the belly. Here are two at a water hole. My wife, when she saw this zebra, she said, "Oh, the zebra's pregnant." Either one on the left-hand side or the one right in front of us. And our guy said, "No, it's not pregnant. It's just bloated." The zebras are very gassy because of all the grass that they eat. So they look like they are pregnant, whether they are or not. One of the other antelope that we have here is the kudu. This is a pretty large one. At its shoulders, it's about 5 feet high, and it browses and grazes. And it is a dusk to dawn. So it's a nighttime browser. I took this photograph because it's hard to see. It blends into the foliage without all the shadows. These are water bucks. These are juveniles practicing. Impala, they are active during the day. So if you go to Africa, you'll certainly see them. They're much smaller than the kudu. At the shoulders, they are only about 3 feet high. And you know them from other antelope because of the M shape on their butt. Here's a couple of impala jousting. These are juveniles. They're practicing for adulthood. And this is a puku. This is a small antelope. It's only about 31 inches high at its shoulders. And you see it generally at dawn and at dusk. And this is a juvenile puku practicing, waiting for it to become an adult. All right, I ask you, how many leopards do you see in this photograph? It's one of the things that really impressed me is how both predators and prey have camouflage to be able to hide themselves. And we were driving along one morning and we came across these 2 leopard cubs. And it took me several times looking through the brush before I was able to find it. I don't know how many times my guide kept pointing to me, but there are 2 in this photograph. And these cubs are important because they are the offspring of a leopard that is called Chipazua that I will talk about in a moment. So what we have here is a puku feasting on the flowers of this acacia tree. Apparently the flowers taste very, very good. And they come out in the morning and they stand at the tree and they eat the flowers. And the leopards know this. And that's why you will find a leopard up in the branches waiting for the right opportunity to come down and pounce on this unknowing antelope. We thought we would see a kill right before our very eyes, but it didn't happen because the baboons that were nearby started barking once they saw the leopard in the tree, and the puku left, and the leopard came down from the tree, was not happy with the baboons and chased it away. They don't go after the baboons because the baboons can probably get up into a tree or run faster, and there's not much meat on them anyway. And so here they are with a baboon walking next to the leopard. All right, so this is Chipazua. She's a female, and her territory is in proximity to the camp that we stayed at, Lion Camp. The day before this, some videographers told us that she had killed an impala, but it was stolen from her by a lion and a hyena that showed up. This morning, she had just killed this. We didn't see the kill, but she came across the road as we were driving by, and she was definitely trying to haul this antelope away and get it into the brush where it would be hidden from other predators. But there was no luck for her a second day in a row. And a hyena shows up, and there is this ongoing battle and tug of war for the reward. So in a moment, you'll see a tug of war. We're in our Jeep, maybe 25 feet away, no more than 30 for sure. All right, so that was Chipazua. In the local dialect, that name means more beautiful than the sun. This is one of the leopard cubs of Chipazua. It is 8 months old, and surprisingly, it is not able to forage for prey itself. It might eat a small animal like a frog. Maybe it would see a snake, but going and hunting and hauling something away is not in its capability yet. I was impressed by the length of its whiskers, as well as all the fur inside its ears. And since these leopards hunt at nighttime in thick brush, they want to make sure that they are quiet. So those long whiskers alert the leopard that it is coming through brush and might be making some noise. So the leopard cubs need to learn at a very early age to climb. They are cats after all, but it's common to see photographs of leopards with their kill up on a branch. If they can haul it up there, then they are safe from the hyenas and the lions. I was watching this leopard cub not far away, and it decided to stand up and walk right underneath the safari truck. And it went and plopped itself down at the front of the truck, and it was maybe 8 or 9 feet from me. And I watched it, and I did a video, but I'm running over time, so I'm not going to show that one, but I'll show you some other ones. So here's the leopard cub eating a stork. Chipazua brought this stork. It had been dead for a while because it had a putrid odor, but she brought it to her cubs so they would have something to eat or play with. Now, in a moment, you'll see something that you'll recognize as typical cat behavior. Very playful. All right. So like the lions, these leopard cubs spend a lot of the day sleeping. All right. So what do you do when an elephant decides to come and visit? Well, you don't do anything because the elephants get to go wherever they want to go. This is an African elephant, and it's distinguished from the Asian elephant from the fact that at the end of its trunk, it has 2 grips. The Asian elephant only has 1 grip. And so this elephant is able to use that to grab things, leaves, small items, much easier than the Asian elephant. This is obviously a baby elephant nursing. Once it gets over a year old, it no longer can fit underneath the belly of the mama. And so that's how we know that this is under a year old. The elephants spend a lot of time near the water, and this is what their spa day looks like. All right. When you come across a herd of elephant, that can be a very exciting event, as demonstrated in this video. Male elephants over 12 years old are banned from the herd. And so what you see in the matriarchal society are a female matriarch, of course, and youngsters, and the bull elephants are loners. Here are some elephants crossing the river. Some yellow baboons. Some baby baboons. They look like they are all head. Baboon in a tree. This is a monkey, and I thought of taking this photograph because of the way it blended in, camouflage to the background of the tree and the lighting. As you go around the park in your safari jeeps, you'll find the park littered with skulls and bones and things. It's quite common to see all of these remains. This is a warthog, hyena. Now, I mentioned the hyenas earlier in the presentation around the lion kill and how they will come and eat the bones. And they consume so many bones that it's not uncommon to be driving by and see piles of white scat, which are colored by the calcium that the hyenas eat. At nighttime, a lot goes on at nighttime. You have the elephants, you've got Cape buffalo, you got antelope. Things happen at night. This is a spotted genet. It's a cat-like carnivore, and it is related to an animal called a civet. You might know the name civet from the perfume industry because of the musk oil from the civet is used commonly in perfumes. Cape buffalo, one of the big 5 animals in Africa, they gather together at nighttime in a herd. They circle the wagons, so to speak, for their protection. And so there they are, shoulder to shoulder at nighttime. Another thornicraft giraffe, sundown, and a pod of hippos. They are a funny looking animal, and I'm going to relate to you a legend of the hippo. And you may not know, but in time before time, the hippo had hair, and it was one of the most spectacular coverings of hair, and many of the animals were jealous of it. The yellow baboons were jealous of the hippo. One day, the hippo happened to step on the foot of a hare, and the hare said, "Oh, you stepped on me. Don't do that." And the hippo apologized profusely, but the hare had some animosity towards the hippo and decided to get even. And so the hare built a big, beautiful nest that would be attractive to the hippo. And one day the hippo came in and went to sleep in the nest, and the hare set the nest on fire. And the hippo caught fire, burned all of that beautiful hair covering, and went to the water to put itself out. And once without any covering, it felt naked and embarrassed. And from then on, the hippos live in the water, and they only come out at nighttime. So that is the legend of the hippo. And here is a yellow baboon sitting on the edge of the river, contemplating life. And my friends, that is the end of my presentation tonight. and I'm open for any questions. And if I can find how to stop the screen here, stop the share screen. I'm looking for my cursor. I'm not using my computer.
Hey, Robert, I'm gonna, there's one question here in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and read that off to you really quickly.
Okay.
Larry wants to know, was the Swainson's guinea fowl named after the same person as the Swainson's hawk?
I'm not sure, Larry, but I suspect that is the case.
Okay. And then we don't have any other questions at the moment, but Clayton commented to say thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to give it a moment here to allow for people to put any questions they might have in the chat box. Give it a moment, then I'll kind of start to wind it down a little bit. All right, here, let me check one more time. All right, I'm not seeing anything yet, so I'll kind of just start to wind it down a little bit. So thank you again, Robert. That was a wonderful presentation. We certainly appreciate that. And then here we got something else in the chat. Karen Baker says, great presentation. Valerie Fisher echoed that sentiment, says very interesting, and thank you for sharing. So yeah, so thank you again, Robert, for that wonderful and exciting presentation. And thank you to everyone who attended. We certainly appreciate it. I'd like to remind you all that Fresno Audubon is on Facebook and on Instagram and also YouTube. So if you want to review this general meeting presentation or any others from recent years, you can find them up on our YouTube channel. I do hope that you'll all join us for our general meeting presentation next month, which is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11th. Let's see, what's the name here? Daniel Karp will be talking to us about harmonizing bird conservation with food production and farming landscapes. So yeah, like I said, I do hope you'll join us for that. So stay tuned for information on that and for links to registration via email and Fresno Audubon social media. So I'm going to check again one more time here in the chat. Now, I'm not seeing anything else here at the moment. So yeah, thank you again, Robert, and thank you again, everyone who attended. All right, have a good evening, everybody.
Right.
All right, thank you, Robert.